Hello, how are you? I hope you all are well. Yes, I usually go live on Thursdays now, but I'm going to go live. If you see this video today on Friday, the 23rd, I'm going to go live tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I was going to go yesterday, but holy cow, I was tired. In a matter of 2 weeks, I flew across the country, got the vaccine, which I didn't think I was going to do. I wouldn't have done it, but I have a lot of older and vulnerable members of my family. Got family members, some medical help, so we've been in and out of the doctor. I've heart problems run in my family, so that's sort of what it is. And then there's also allergies here. There's this thing called pollen that's in the air, and I think my body was just like, can we have 5 minutes to just chill? So I went to bed at like 8 p.m. last night. I feel great today. But anywho, everyone's talking about LeBron James right now, and we're going to do it too, because I have a lot of opinions on the matter, and I wasn't going to, but I woke up today, and even the New York Times, there's still this gaslighting about a completely terribly tragic incident that happened a few days ago. So a few days ago, we got the verdict for the Derek Chauvin trial, and it was guilty, guilty, guilty. A lot of people were celebrating, but on that same exact day, there was another fatal police shooting. This one involved a teenage girl. I believe she was 15 or 16. So an officer was called to a home for a dispute. The person that called said that there were some individuals trying to attack her. And the police show up, and as soon as the police got there, chaos was happening. A person runs out of the house, is attacking individuals. There's fights. Within a matter of, I believe, 9 seconds, the officer fatally shot this young woman who was a teenager. So immediately the outrage started. Well, this story is actually a little bit different than a lot of our stories. And you see this photo right here. This is a second, maybe a half second before the police fired, and this, you can see she was about to potentially murder. I'm going to go ahead and say that this was an attempted murder. I don't know what else you call that, but the police officer basically saved the life of the girl in the pink. It was an incredible shot. No one else was hurt. Unfortunately, tragically, the other young lady, the one with the knife, lost her life. And this situation, again, yes, terribly tragic. What an awful situation all the way around. And if you watch the whole video, you kind of see how it played out. Terribly tragic, but in my opinion and the opinion of many, completely justified. You know, this cop did the best that he could. And even still, even though we have this body cam footage, they released it as quickly as they could. You can clearly see that it's justified. What was this officer? What else was he going to do? Let this person get fatally stabbed right in front of him? Then what would have the narrative been? Or maybe we would have not have heard about it at all. And even still, you had certain media outlets and public figures that were saying that this girl was unarmed, that this was completely unjustified, you know, the same anti-police messaging. And probably the worst of all of it, maybe not the worst, but you know, was LeBron James, and he posted this, which he later deleted. This was the officer that fired the shot, and he said, what, you're next, accountability? So this basically got completely ratioed. I saw the post live when it was out. I believe I even reposted it. And when you look at the comments, most people, I would say about 90 to 95% of people were saying, are you kidding? This was clearly justified. Even some people that said, you know what, I don't like police, but in this situation, clearly justified. This officer saved the girl's life in the pink. We even got video footage that came out from a completely different angle. It was security camera from a neighbor. He looked on his security camera. He had the whole thing on there. Even the neighbor said, you know what? The cop did exactly what the cop had to do. This was just a terrible situation. The cop showed up. He was giving them commands. And even in the presence of the cop, even with the cop giving commands, this young lady attempted to attack and stab 2 different people. And we have audio on this video that was released by the neighbor from the security cam footage. And she said, I'm going to read you what she said. I'm going to stab the F out of you, B. And she said that while she was lunging at these individuals she was attempting to stab. So LeBron James ended up taking that tweet down, but this is what he said. He said, Anger does not do any of us any good, and that includes myself. Gathering all the facts and educating does, though. My anger is still here for what happened to that little girl. My sympathy for her family and for justice prevail. He also said, I'm so damn tired of seeing black people killed by police. I took the tweet down because it is being used to create more hate. This isn't about one officer. It's about the entire system and what they always use. And they always use our words to create more racism. I'm so desperate for more accountability. Okay, so basically LeBron James is saying that a cop now cannot even intervene to stop a murder, an attempted murder that is happening right in front of him. Is this the world that we live in now? This cop had seconds to react, milliseconds to react. And when you look at this photo, it is a freaking miracle that the woman in pink was not harmed in any way. We are at the point where the police can't do anything right. They can't even stop an attempted murder. LeBron James is talking about accountability. What about accountability for the person that was trying to take another person's life? What about accountability there? Should the cop have just not done anything and let it happen right in front of him? Is that what you're saying? And this type of rhetoric, it's you know, I follow a lot of conservative commentators, and I'm even at the same point where I'm like, you know what? I would actually have more respect for an officer right now that quit and left. And that's what's going to happen. They're going to stop responding to these calls. They're going to stop joining the force. And police officers are going to start quitting in larger numbers than we've ever seen before. And I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? This is what LeBron James lives in. What is it? A $100 million house somewhere in Bel Air. Do you think his neighborhood is going to be affected by less policing and by police not responding to calls like this? No, he's not. He lives in a house probably with a huge security gate, security cameras, all kinds of stuff. He's not going to be affected by this. I don't know if anyone watched Candace Owens' video where she has like an 8-minute video where she's discussing this. I'm going to piggyback off her a little bit. It was really great what she said. She made a lot of really good points, but how lost are we as a society? How far gone are we as a society that we are demonizing a police officer for stopping an attempted murder? And people are saying, well, he should have tased her. He should have shot her in the leg. He had seconds to react. Otherwise, that girl in the pink might not be here today, or she would be in the hospital in very serious critical condition. And in so many of these situations, the reason the cops are in these neighborhoods is because they're being called there. They're being called there to protect people. Nobody cares about the victims. No one cares about the people that called the police officers. Everyone is on the side of the criminals now. We are glorifying and making angels out of these criminals. If you don't want to have a bad interaction with cops, don't commit a crime. Don't try to stab someone. Comply with the police officer. When they give you a command, it's probably a good idea to listen to it. But we're not having that conversation, and by not having that conversation and glorifying this criminal behavior, we're going to be creating more instances like this. Even this morning, the New York Post, look at what the New York Post is saying. Oh, she was just a normal, just regular kid. Most people don't try to stab and kill other people, and yes, it's a tragedy. I honestly think that this young girl was failed by society, probably failed by her parents, and maybe that's why she has all this anger and she's in this situation in the first place. Look, I don't know. I will say this. I've talked about this time and time before. She is exactly the type of teenage girls that I used to work with. I've worked in group homes. I've worked in psychiatric hospitals, residential facilities. This is the exact type of child or teenager that I used to work with. I had kids that, society would think of as probably the bad kids, the kids that cussed their teachers out, the kids that got in fights in schools, that ran around with gangs, that did drugs, hung out with older people, drank alcohol, all kinds of things like that. That officer's job was to serve and protect, and that is exactly what he did. You give up your rights when you put someone else's safety or someone else's life in danger. When you infringe on my rights, you give up your rights. Just a side note, but going back to, I used to work with kids just like her in all kinds of different facilities. The reason I quit, the reason I don't do that anymore, I quit when I was working at a place in Denver, is because every year they kept cutting our budget. And they kept cutting budgets and funding for mental health in the county in the the state that I lived in, I worked for the government, and every year we would have budget cuts and budget cuts, which meant we had less staff, which meant we had less support, which also meant we were seeing clientele with even more serious diagnosis and with even more serious behaviors that we were not trained or equipped to deal with. And it got to the point where it was unsafe. My last few weeks there, I got attacked by a client. I had a chunk of my hair pulled out. I was hit on the head with a boombox, and I was bit really bad on the arm. After that happened, and this is a situation that should not have happened. It shouldn't have gotten this far. And guess who we called when we couldn't handle our client's behavior? We called the police officers. They were there to keep us safe, our other clients safe, and the individual who was, going off safe. But I couldn't do that anymore. It wasn't worth it. I couldn't go and put my safety on the line, if I didn't feel like I was being backed up or supported by the place that I worked for or by the state and the city that I worked for. So I had to quit. It wasn't worth it anymore. And I think that's where a lot of cops, I think that's where they're going to be, if not now, soon. I mean, we've been seeing it. Cops are leaving at really high numbers. People are trying to bring on cops. They're not able to recruit, and I don't blame them. You can't put your safety on the line every single day. Look at this. You have your local government doesn't support you. They demonize you. The public demonizes you. The media demonizes you. A freaking NBA star who knows nothing about what he's talking to is demonizing you to his 50 million followers. Why would you be a police officer and put yourself in those situations to protect people that have no respect for you and that are going to demonize you for doing exactly what you signed up to do, to protect and serve? So I say, you know what? Quit, retire, or go to a rural area or a red area or an area where people actually support you and where you're appreciated and they have common sense about policing. And it is terribly tragic that it got to the point where the police even had to be called. It is terribly tragic that when the police officer arrived, that they didn't have enough respect for authority to stop what they were doing. It is terribly tragic that any of this happened. Unfortunately, that officer did what he had to do in that situation, and it's just a bad, awful, terrible situation all the way around. And for the shooting in the leg argument, that can be a kill shot too. There's a huge artery in the leg that if that one is hit, you're in a really bad situation. And again, I'm going to piggyback off what Candace Owens said, and she said this: if you don't see how in this situation this officer was justified, if you're someone that's trying to demonize this officer, then you are a lost soul. We are at a time where we're seeing little babies get mowed down in McDonald's parking lots in their front lawns, sleeping in their bed, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and all of those ages. I'm thinking of specific cases. I have never heard LeBron James one time mention any of these kids. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about everything. I'll see you later tonight. Bye.